In August, as Ms. Ledbetter would say, I stepped up because of what I saw and what I heard, and I finally got to the point where I said, I can't take this anymore. I've got to try to do something to make a difference. And to understand those thoughts, I need to describe a little bit about my background. My father was the chairman of the state Democratic Party back in the 1960s, in those turbulent times during the civil rights struggle. And Dad fought many a good fight in those times to keep the Democratic Party as a progressive voice, as a champion for the cause of civil rights. His fight, his battles, his efforts left a great impression on his little boy back in the 1960s. I truly feel blessed having him as my father. I also feel blessed having a wonderful mom who was the real moral authority in the household, and all you mothers know that's the case. While Dad was out fighting the political battles in Alabama, it was Mom who taught my brother and me, this is right and this is wrong. There is an incredible importance in respecting the civil rights, the basic humanity of all of God's children. So I feel very fortunate in that having parents like that shaped who I am. I saw a campaign going on that was beneath the office of Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. My opponent, as he has done throughout his career, focuses only on these social wedge issues to divide us. He strives to demonize groups of Alabamians, to pit one group against another, trying to make political hay out of all that, all the while trumpeting the fact that he is a man of God, proclaiming that God is on his side. With due respect, my opponent needs to do a little soul searching and question whether he is on God's side. We now have a campaign with two starkly different choices. My opponent continues in his effort to divide us and to distract us with emotionally charged issues that are of no consequence to most Alabamians. He throws out the red meat in an effort to appeal to our worst emotions, our worst passions. My campaign has attempted to focus on the real issues that we face here in Alabama today. The significant challenges that our courts face in the state today. My message has been one of unity. And it's a simple message. Given the problems we face, the challenges we face in our state, in state government, in our courts, we have no hope of solving those problems if we are at one another's throats. We've got to come together. We've got to work together, Democrat and Republican alike, to deal with these problems. While my opponent strives to make hay out of our worst emotions, my campaign seeks to touch the better angels of our nature, as Lincoln once. My opponent has proven that he is driven only by his personal beliefs, rather than by the law. He will put himself above the law, and he's willing to ignore the law for his own personal benefit. For such a man to run as Chief Justice, the highest law official in this state, is simply unbelievable. The Democratic candidate standing before you embraces the value of law as the foundation of this great country. The Democratic candidate before you recognizes the solemn duty that each one of us as Americans has to follow the law. The Democratic candidate recognizes that the Chief Justice must always serve this state, must always stand as a representative, as an ambassador for every Alabamian in this state. It makes no difference to me what your gender is. It makes no difference to me what the color of your skin is. I don't care what your national origin is. I don't care about your sexual orientation. As Chief Justice, I will serve and represent each of you. That's what the Chief Justice is supposed to be. My campaign is ultimately based on optimism, on faith in the people of Alabama. While others resort to the time-worn politics, divisive politics that we've seen in Alabama's past, I am convinced that most Alabamians will no longer fall for such tactics. And the reason for this is simply because we're all hurting. We're all struggling these days. We're just now coming out of one of the greatest recessions that this nation has endured. The president is leading us out of the woods, but we're not out of the woods yet. There are too many people who are still unemployed, too many people who are struggling to make ends meet. Our state government struggles. We've just had a vote back in September, dipping into the rainy day trust fund, just to cover the cost of government. There are amendments on the ballot authorizing the government to borrow money to meet those costs. Our state courts are struggling, and it has been a constant struggle for the past 10 years. Our courts have had to lay off hundreds of employees. We've had to cut back good programs, good services that the people of this state expect and deserve. In such times, I'm convinced the people simply want honest, reasonable, serious-minded people to serve as their representatives, as their public servants, to do the job they were elected to do.
How do two Sunday school teachers, lawyers from Alabama, come to such dramatic, different interpretations of the First Amendment, especially the separation of church and state clause in the First Amendment? You know, I mean, where do you stand on that?
You know, that's part of the First Amendment, that there can be no official establishment of religion in our country.
Well, should you go black, right?
You know, I am a big believer that there does exist a wall between church and state. Thomas Jefferson espoused that 200 plus years ago, and I'm a big believer in that. Now, what I've tried to emphasize is that his removal from office did not result from his religious convictions. It resulted from the fact that he put himself above the law. He disobeyed a valid court order. We can't have that. When I enter an order, I expect people to comply with that order. How can I have that expectation if they can point to Roy Moore and say, Judge Moore doesn't have to follow orders, why should I? That's the bind, that's the problem that he created.
His philosophy also puts God above government in a civil society, a secular society, it seems to me. His whole philosophy is wacko.
Well, you know, I won't comment on his religious convictions. He and I may differ on that. My belief is, regardless of your personal beliefs, your personal convictions, when you're ordered to do something by a court, you got to do it. It doesn't matter whether you're a homeless man on the streets or you're the president of the United States. You've got to follow the law. When the court tells you to do something, you got to comply with that order, regardless of who you are, regardless of what your beliefs are. And that's the problem. That's the concern I have with my opponent. That he failed to meet that obligation he has as an American citizen.